And actually, my next question is we're talking about ROI and money and costs. And the question is, traditionally, technology has been looked at as a capital expenditure, but as guest expectations in terms of tech amenities continue to evolve at such a rapid pace, it can be difficult to keep up with the costs. So, do you foresee the model of technology as capital continuing, or hotels need to adapt new ways of looking at financing to keep up with guest expectations that keep changing and changing every day almost?
I don't know what that alternative financing would be, but as Vivek said, I mean, anything we do has to show some return, right? And so what we try to do is, if we want to implement a new technology, is there a potential revenue stream there for the hotel to recover what they might have to invest? But it's still a capital expense.
Absolutely.
You know, we've looked at leasing, we've looked at a lot of different things. We've worked with different vendors to kind of fund things in a way. But sometimes you think about the number of hotels we have, it just doesn't work in every market. So you get kind of this imbalance across the hotels.
Maybe I interpreted the question a little bit different, but I'm seeing it kind of goes back to that comment we were talking about before, because things are turning over so fast. We've had a couple instances where it doesn't make sense to capitalize it because 2 years later you're writing it off because you've replaced it. So, and of course, as you see the cost of technology go down, and I don't know, in your segment, but PCs now we just expense, routers, or there's a lot of stuff that maybe over $1,000 or something like that. So it's technically capitalizable, but because of the nature of the beast now, and I can't make the argument, put this in and it's gonna, save you blah 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 or create some kind of ROI. It's just like we gotta have this infrastructure in place, this access point. We need 3 more, pay for $3,000, and the financing model is expensive in that time period, which can hurt a little bit, but at the same time, your pain's done once you do it.
Right.
Yeah. We have seen a number of things that have moved from the CapEx line to the OpEx line over the years. A lot of cases, PMS has made that move at different hotel companies. It's now included in a franchise fee or some other fee that's being assessed by the provider or even by a third party. We had an interesting discussion on this with some of the CIOs last year, and what we heard was that there was an expectation that the OpEx model would be much more palatable for a lot of the reasons we're talking about in terms of change management and refresh. But at the larger hotel companies, particularly the ones that had asset managers and serious funding behind them, they're really indifferent. They're looking at it strictly on an ROI basis, and whichever funding model makes more sense. If they need to put the capital in there, okay. But I think at the smaller end of the market, where you've got mom and pop businesses, cash flow is king, and sometimes those things make more sense. And it was interesting to see that there might be that division coming.
I think that's true. Same thing, like in our case, of course, we are owned by Blackstone, so the ROI, to your point, it doesn't matter so much whether it's CapEx, the total ROI needs to make sense.
Right.
But what I've seen, at least in my experience, that the software as a service, a lot of new apps that come up, to your point, like if you don't have skill set in that space, it's changing, in 2 years it'll not be there. Trying to make a huge capital investment buying the licenses of some software that you're not sure if it's going to be there or not. I think that makes sense to go software as a service, and that becomes more OpEx.
Right.
There's skepticism around some of the emerging business models over the last 10 years too. If you look at what happened with HSIA, originally that was offered as a service and often on a revenue share type basis, and a lot of hotels really got burned with that. And so now they're looking at those questions much more. They're thinking about more long term about what would the implications be. Am I going to get locked into something that's longer term than I really want to be?
Right.
I think your question too is, we're all talking about other capital things, but I think your question was directed towards guests.
Yeah.
And one thing I will say on that, years ago, or not that long ago, we looked at, do we put these iPads in guest rooms?
Right,
do
sure.
we provide this for a guest? If you look at, and this was brought out very strongly last week at HTF, if you look at what we need to provide for a guest from a capital perspective, what do we need to provide? We need to provide wireless and bandwidth. Because VOD, they bring their own. Phones, they bring their own. Content, they bring their own. So
Big piece of glass.
big piece of glass. Well, and that's another thing and it's not, it really isn't a capital expenditure. I mean, if you have a device like an iPad that can talk to a TV, and there are technologies now that the providers are providing, with Apple and Miracast, those are functionalities that come with the TV or added on. But I think from a guest perspective, I think the capital expenditure is actually gone down because they're bringing everything they need. Now all we need to do is provide a home-like infrastructure that they can use.
Last year we upgraded all our TV system at all our company-owned hotels, flat screen, but we completely got rid of the old content, the LodgeNet systems and all. I mean, it's not completely gone, it's in a few, but those systems are the pay-per-view piece of it. There's no ROI whatsoever. I mean, we just saw graph declining over the years. And the only requirement we have now is that the TVs that we install need to support plug and play. You remember in the old models, they kind of blocked all those ports. There was no way you could connect anything. So it has to go the reverse. They're bringing their own content. We are supplying the glass, the screen, and I believe that's true. And all we are not there yet with the bandwidth because we supply free high speed. Enough bandwidth for streaming video. That's where we need to be, and that's my big push now. I want to get that bandwidth at a cheaper cost.
I mean,
see if we can do that.
And another aspect of that is when we see you bring your own content, and you're seeing an average of 2.5, 3 devices per guest.
Yes.
What do they want to do? They want to do the same thing they're doing at home. They want to bring all those devices into the guest room, and they want them all to talk to each other. Okay? In our environment, all of our environments, that's a no-no. I mean, I don't want to see, he's in next door, I don't want to see what's on his PC. But what the guest wants is if they bring a printer in, if they bring an Apple TV in,
It all works.
they want it all connected in that room. So that is sort of a different technology challenge, for us.
Well, that's actually one of my questions was about just the TV in general. I know just being a regular traveler, I hate the hotel TV because you can't turn it on. First you can't find the remote, then you can't turn it on, and then there's no. It's not like at home where you have you can pull up a guide and see what shows on and what. It's just a number. You never know what's going on. So and then undoubtedly it's a nice, beautiful TV, flat screen HD, but it doesn't get HD channels. It's still, which I just find so confusing. So I mean, in terms of what you're talking about, what are you doing with the TV now?
That's exactly what we upgraded the TV. The only requirements in our case, and it's pretty different for our segment. I don't think too many have done it. We require 30 HD channels. So there's no point upgrading that TV. We went from CRT, old CRT, to this, and we put 30 HD channels, total 37, 30 HD. That was there was a big push. I pushed it, my CEO pushed it, that there's no point putting this screen with standard def 30 programming. It enhanced the bad quality. And the second thing we did was interactive program guide, just like home. So we have that too.
I'm saying
we should stay and we have it in all our company owned, and this is an example. We don't have it on the franchisees yet. So that's where there's a little. It's a little more expensive solution, but we felt from a guest experience because they see this at home. It's important to give them that.
But you talked about everyone bringing their own, their iPad and watching. So, are we going to get to a point where, I mean, they make TVs now where you can watch Netflix through your TV, obviously, with is that something we'll see in hotels, or is it still more just about bandwidth and bringing in?
Well, it depends who you talk to.
Yeah.
If you talk to the set-top box people, they're going to say, no, we'll take care of all that. You talk to the TV vendors, they're going to say, oh, we'll take care of all that. It's going to be kind of a mix, I think, of both in what you're going to need to support. I mean, from our perspective, what we're kind of looking at is a couple of things. First of all, the cost of doing VOD and the encryption on the set is a cost. I mean, you have to pay for that encryption software. If you bring your own content, you don't have to worry about that. So we're looking at trying to get to use more commercial TVs, because there's hotel TVs and there's commercial TVs. The second thing is, if you look in today's current technology, and all of you face the same thing, you go into the MDF rather, and what do you see? Racks and racks and racks of tuners. We want to get rid of all that. If you look at what MGM did in City Center, everything's off property. And there's no equipment in the facility. It all comes in through a connection. That's, I think, the trend where we want to go. And Doug has been involved in this. We've had numerous discussions with with cable apps
yeah.
and all the Fox, or not Fox, the Cox,
Time
Comcast,
Warner,
Time
TV.
Warner, and we'd love to take that technology and put it in hotels.
Yeah.
But they're all different. They all want to do their own thing.
Right.
I mean, it goes back to what I said before. What we're trying to do is to make it the same as when you're at home.
Yeah.
You look at the channel lineup,
Yeah.
go through it, that's what you want.
When you look at the next gen products that are being brought out by a number of the vendors, they are moving in the direction we're talking about. Most of them do now have IPGs. Most of them don't really care one way or the other whether you get any on-demand pay-per-view. And they are going asset light on the front end and on the head-end equipment in the hotel. There's a lot of refresh that still needs to be done to get there, and some of those products aren't completely mature yet. But they are. I think they are moving in the right direction. I don't know who's going to win the next round, but there's some promising signs.
Well, a big piece of being like at home, which is definitely what guests are looking for, is that you get used to and learn your system at home. And we don't have time or patience to do that in a hotel. There's an incredibly low bar for, even if the IPG looks a little different, it's just off-putting. So there is a healthy tension there between, sometimes the best thing we can deliver to the guest is the simplest thing possible, so that there isn't that array of complexity where if I'm staying for less than 3 or 4 days, I wouldn't even try to figure it out.
Give me an app I can load on my iPhone that works at every hotel, and I will use it.
Yeah.
But it has to work in every hotel, not just one brand.
So last year we launched a pretty substantial renovation effort, investing about $450 million in capital at all of our properties. And part of it was around the television, so putting high definition flat screen TVs in all of our properties. But a lot of it was driven by research. And in the research that we conducted with our guests, they really didn't want that much. Really, they wanted to see the same type of channels that they would watch at home. And really, that was the full extent of what they wanted, right? Give me HBO over Showtime. Give me Bravo over something else, And it was a limited, small request that they wanted that we were able to respond to. And that process of putting that made that kind of more at-home experience, which is what I think most guests are expecting and wanting, right?
And they had to have Bravo so they could watch Real Housewives.
There you go.
The other challenge that we see is, up until recently, everything we deployed was coax.
Yes.
And that's not a converged, it's an isolated network. And I think, at least from Marriott's perspective, we're doing a lot of learning in supporting IPTV over Ethernet.
Yeah.
It's a real challenge because one reconfiguration on a switch could bring down the whole property. And that's same way with setting up the network properly in order to support that is a challenge too. So there's a lot of learning going on, and if you look at the IPTV vendors in the marketplace today, with the exception of say Guesttech or some of them, but most of them are relatively young companies in this space, so they're learning as well as we're learning, and it's an interesting road we're traveling right now.
Covered? Anyone else?
Yeah, well, I was gonna follow up on what David was saying. We're kind of in the same boat. We got the TVs out there, and we're actually doing that evaluation on all the channel selections and things like that. And a lot of them are addressing the hardware, with slimmer racks and things like that. But that was the exact conversation we had with them. Is you cannot. It's like you're talking to the DirecTV guys. You guys cannot offer $3 Cinemax at home to all those DirecTV guys, and then have us charge $18.95. And so we're kind of out. I think it'll be interesting to see if the content people are going to actually buy into this new model, which is, if you don't, everybody's doing the Netflix and Hulu Plus and all these other kind of things, so we can have all these apps. Okay, why don't you guys just offer your movie at the same $3 rate in the hotel,
Right.
and actually sell some movies? Because people want. The hard part is that simple thing, because
That's right.
yeah, I mean, how do you offer Netflix and they gotta they're on some remote and they gotta enter their username and password and do one thing at a time. I mean, that's just not.
It's unwieldy.
It's not a good experience ultimately, but to be able to pick it up and see the program guide and be able to say, I want to buy a movie, $2.99, boom. Or maybe it's you know, you get 3 movies for $4.99 over the
Yeah.
next 24 hours, you know, that you're in the room.
I think we may leapfrog that entirely though, because I think that the people are already getting out of the habit of that, and they're getting into the habit of buying it and downloading it on their PC or their iPad or whatever. And if they can plug that in or pair that wirelessly, I think that's ultimately an easier model both for the consumer and for the studios, because the studios then don't have to deal with multiple licensing channels.
I think we'll grow into it, but there's still a big segment of the population that, you know, likes I think there's an age divider.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Absolutely.
That a little, you know, it's probably not going to take very much time,
People are still paying.
especially as these things get better.
So 3 to 5 years, I think.
Yeah.
The other aspect of it, to your point, you know, if I could take this device, an iPad,
Yeah.
and turn it on and it appears on the TV, I don't have to worry about it. It'll happen.
And you can if you have an Apple TV.
I don't. I don't want
Absolutely.
cables because
Yeah.
I can't keep stocking cables.
Right.
I just want the thing to work.
Yeah, the key.
And we're getting closer to that now, I think.
The other thing that we're working on in HC&G is, and you sort of alluded to it, is the pairing of the device to the TV.
Yeah.
You know, that's another challenge. I want to make sure that when I pair it to my TV, that the guy
It's
next
not-
door is
yes.
not seeing what I'm seeing. And when I leave, I want that pairing to go away.
Yeah, so you want to marry the devices when they check into the room, and you want a quick divorce when
Yes.
I see the set-top box playing a role in this and all this. That's like in our case again. That's the one common that allows me to get that common experience brand-wide.
Yeah.
So there's that you need some device to
Right.
do all this.
Yeah.
And then on the pairing, I completely agree that you should have think about these devices that people will be carrying.
Right.
But then it comes straight back to the bandwidth question.
Right.
And that's the challenge. And so everyone's streaming video
Yeah.
while on your Wi-Fi.
Sure.
So you got to the bandwidth is like critical there.
What do you guys do with bandwidth? I mean, that you were saying this is the biggest wireless and bandwidth are the biggest thing. So what are you guys? That's the big investment right now. Is that where?
double it every year?
It's increasing every year.
It's infrastructure too,
Yeah.
because mobile devices have obviously different, signal coverage, and so we're finding that the architecture in the hotels from 4 and 5 and 7 years ago that was designed for a PC and laptop world, well, laptops are much stronger than mobile devices. So we're actually having to go back and basically map every single property, look at coverage, understand where the gaps are, redo the infrastructure. That's an investment. The cabling's an investment, and then from an OpEx standpoint, the bandwidth is a considerable expense too. But again, it's
The effective
essential.
capacity of hotel Wi-Fi networks when it got cut in half the day that device was introduced, basically, because it's got the weakest radio of anything out
Yes.
there, and it really sucks up the access point.
Yep. It really does.
That's what we saw. We were in kind of a unique position where our initial Wi-Fi offering was a T-Mobile offering. You guys remember the old pay solution? This is probably 12 years ago. And it went in, it operated great. It was a T1 solution, had 8 access points in the building, and you just worked around it because you had people do it. The minute we took it free, it was literally a 10-fold increase in usage, and those points just went, and the coverage on the hotel shrunk by half, and all of a sudden half of your buildings aren't getting coverage. I mean, we're doing the same thing. We have to go into every single one, remap everything, enhance and where we can in our concrete bunkers.
Again, our set-top box provider is also talking to us about each set-top box having a Wi-Fi transmitter for the room. And the biggest challenge is interference. Like when you got all these
How do you
rooms.
isolate it?
Right.
We got to see if that works. But again, that's back to this device in the room. That's kind of the integrator for all these things that we want to do.
Right.
I think it's going to be key there because, like what you were saying, is then that set-top box becomes that pairing for the 5 devices I have
Exactly.
in my room and controls
Yeah, we're seeing
how that comes together.
We're seeing that as one option people are looking at, and the other is kind of these wall point dual access points where you put, in the wall plate between 2 rooms, you put an access point or even 2 access points
That's what we have
manage
today.
that. Yeah.
That's what we've deployed. Motorola Top 3 solution.
Yeah.
Every 3 or 4 rooms have an access point in the wall plate. That's in a lot of our properties. That's what we've been doing for the last 3-4 years. But to your point, even those are now older, and we're starting to see some
Well,
challenges.
but they need to be smarter, and that's gonna be,
Yeah.
they need to be smarter, and they need to be very simple for me to make sure that my-fi devices can talk to my-fi devices, and nobody is in on that, and that's more than just this radio antenna.
Well, I think the other limitation there is you're limited by the copper backbone typically on the wall plate solution, and
right.
eventually you're gonna need to get to fiber.
Yes, you are.
You know, just what you brought up the whole, and so I guess here's the wires and everything that goes in with what can go with it. But my question actually was about design. As technology keeps evolving and getting better and better, are the TVs, are they going up on the wall now? Are they still on dressers? And I mean, how do you have to actually, as technology improves, you have to work with designers, interior designers, and how does that all kind of work together then?
You can't change it all at once.
Yeah,
So
I
the
think
wardrobe's still sitting on.
Yeah,
Right.
I think you're right. I know in our case, each brand is going to want their own design.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at our corporate headquarters in the basement of our building, we've got mock-up rooms of every brand.
Right.
And the designers come in and say, I want the TV here, I want the TV there, I want this size TV. So yeah, and when you go to these boutique hotels, you're going to get, and we ran a situation in a hotel in Hawaii where they had an architect designer come in and say, everything in the room had to be white. The TVs had to be white, the cables had to be white,
White picture.
white frames. The bezels had to be white. So you get in situations like that.
Housekeeping loves that, don't they?
Yeah.
To me, it looked like a hospital.
Yeah.